KB, you actually watched Borat 2 the other day.
I did. Ignore the title because we want to keep it lighthearted. But yeah, Borat 2 I watched yesterday, and in terms of whether it's better or worse than the first one, I don't know if you can really directly compare it, because the idea of the Borat sequel is something that it takes on what America is today, and as well it puts Borat in a completely different spin of things. Like in the first movie, you had him like optimistic to learn new culture, the Western culture and things like that, but in this one it's more, I don't know how much I can explain the plot without spoiling it, but just to say he's not there on his own free will this time, so it puts a new spin on things. And the whole idea of changing it up with the side character, did the trailer explain his side character?
Well, it's his daughter, wasn't it?
It's his daughter, yeah. So the plot is that his daughter, Kazakhstan has ordered him to give his daughter up as a gift to Donald Trump, to be free from the jails of Kazakhstan, essentially. Otherwise they'll kill him, and they explain very explicitly how they're going to do that. But it's also placed in the time that the COVID is in place and things like that, so you do have people like interacting with Borat and saying "step away from me" and blah blah blah, and it's got some new ideas of how to shock people, and there's this, even though it shows
that really intrigues me, that what you said just then, new ideas to shock people, because I feel like there's very little people can be shocked by nowadays.
Yeah,
you know?
But I love the way that Borat does it, is in a sense of he puts it into the narrative, like uniquely blends it in. So you've got the prank segments, but then you've got it adding up to the story as well, and it has got a bit of a more wholesome story to it as well, in its own interesting way, which I like. And
obviously we don't want to give too much away about the film. I mean, I haven't seen it. I'll probably watch it at some point, but yeah. So you think it's ultimately a successful endeavor?
I would say so. Yeah, there will be people who say, as in like, that it doesn't hold up the same novelty as the first, but that's always a given whenever a sequel is done. But people said the same thing about Bruno, and now these days Bruno is seen as something completely separate to Borat in its own right. Same with The Dictator, same with Brothers Grimsby. You know, it's just the diverse comedy that Sacha Baron Cohen puts onto the table.
Personally, I think I would consider him like a national treasure.
Absolutely, yeah. And I wouldn't go into this expecting it to be subpar in terms of racism and sexism and all sorts of those things, but I don't really see it as, you know, being intentionally racist or things like that. I think it's trying to bring that racism and sexism out of people, like you see in some parts of the film. So it's like an exposure flick in that sense.
It's the argument I have about things like Little Britain or Team America.
Yeah,
as well. You're not laughing because it's racist. You're laughing at the stereotypes.
Yeah, there was some parts where I did think that they kind of blurred the lines a bit, like on Come Fly With Me with the two Japanese girls.
Oh yeah,
that was a bit like,
that's not
time,
all that stuff, but
yeah. But in that sense, like, you know, you watch it knowing that the characters in it aren't actually, you know, the people who play them aren't racist or sexist or anything like that. They're playing to the ignorance of it, if that makes sense. And that's the irony. That's the irony of watching it. I think that's what 2020 doesn't really get.
That's the whole point. That was like what the first Borat movie did. It was playing on the ignorant attitudes of some sectors of the American South.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was manipulating those views to his advantage and creating comedy out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like, I remember
Obviously, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah, sort of I rewatched Borat 1 before I went into this, and
I feel like that was probably a good idea.
Yeah, it still carries that I think it still carries the novelty, because it's not like the character has been completely redundant. They've added something new to the character, and a new sort of environment for him to be in. Like, if there was like a sequel the following year after the first one was released, then that would be different. But it's put Borat in a completely new setting. But you still see a lot of the sort of like it shows in the actual article here of an ultimately inspiring America. And I'll spoil one funny thing that was said at the beginning, just for like, he's like, since I've been away from America, I've heard that an evil man has taken over and spread his influence, Barack Obama. And that in itself is just I love how I love it. But yeah, I think it's so worth a watch, and if you have an Amazon Prime account, then it's on there.
Actually, and I think I will. Yeah, and I'll maybe give you my thoughts about it next.
Yeah. Week. So when you go into this, expect that those absolutely absurd and hilarious moments. Expect some cringy moments. Expect some gross moments as well. There's like one or two of those. Film, really. Absolutely, yeah. And there's one. You'll see one joke in there that is carried on from the first one. I'll give you a cookie if you can point out to me which one that is. But yeah, absolutely, I couldn't recommend it enough. It's Sacha Baron Cohen has just really he's pushed the envelope for what the character of Borat can do and how he can evolve. And it's not just a flick of just the jokes involved. It's about building a story around this parody character.
Do you think there's a kind of, you feel like there's a kind of subtext, like a kind of satirical but optimistic subtext to take away from this?
Absolutely, because the character of Borat, he goes up to people and sort of provokes a racist response from them, or a sexist one from a lot of the people you saw in the previous film, and it's kind of putting them on a pedestal that they think that they are good to be on, but being in the movie, from people watching it, you see how much of a twat they are, essentially. So I like how it exposes that, in a sense, and it does show some realization for the character of Borat. So yeah, absolutely. It's
good stuff. All right. Well, Borat 2 out on Amazon Prime at the moment, and I will watch it.
Absolutely. Good stuff.